evening, class. This is a continuation of our study of human communication. This is a handout that will outline what we're going to cover. But for just a moment, excuse me, I would like for you to turn the page over and journalize a situation where you had a conversation, hopefully not an argument, with an individual who you have an interpersonal relationship with, a spouse, very close friend, parent-child. Write it out. This will be your case study.
Write out the last argument you had?
No conversation.
Oh.
Or the last conversation that you had with an individual that you have an interpersonal relationship with on an issue. You could even do it, a conversation that you had on a, well, we've got a lot of politics that we're dealing with. Or an issue that might be related to the household budget. Or an issue that might be related to your parent-child relationship. And reflect on words used. Reflect on your responses and your reactions to information heard. Okay? All right. Let's turn our page over to the handout, and I'm going to but this is actually, active listening is a skill, but there is a process. We hear with our ears a lot of noise. We hear words spoken. We hear music. But to really actively listen takes us to that level where we are beginning to understand what was said by the sender. Now, from what we call in the human communications, the encoder-decoder paradigm is the encoder is the individual, the speaker, who is sending or speaking, and the decoder is the receiver of messages. You're the one that's going to get this information. In the context of your interpersonal relationship, we'll start with the process. You're the decoder, you're the receiver of the information. And what you want to do to prepare yourself to engage in this process is you want to focus on the person, and that is by eliminating activity. For example, husband or wife have an issue that they want to discuss. Husband's cleaning the garage, moving things around. Wife wants to talk about this. What would you do? You'd stop cleaning the garage, right? Because you want to engage in a meaningful discussion. You want to avoid distractions. For example, the cell phone. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to have discussions, usually on pretty important information in the workplace, and someone's reading their BlackBerry. You want to stand or sit appropriately to the speaker. If you are in your home and you have the time and the space, maybe sitting down at the dining room table, or even going to the sofa, or someplace preferably where you don't have distractions like kids. You want to make eye contact, and that's probably one of the first nonverbal actions that you want to trigger. You want to look at that person, and you want to establish with your eye contact, I really want to listen to what you're saying to me. I want to know this. If we've got an issue, let's see if we can resolve it. You have information I'm really interested in. If there is a situation where you have emotions that may probably running high, you might make an election to acknowledge that emotional state by asking or acknowledging, gee, you seem really frustrated. Or gee, you seem really irritated. Or you can suspend and not even talk about emotions and try and depersonalize and get to the issue that's important and put the emotions aside. And the most difficult probably is to set aside your prejudice and your opinions. When you hear statements made, especially when we're listening to this political campaign, statements made, that triggers into your value system, your belief system, and we filter information that we receive from other human beings through those, the value system and the belief system. That takes a lot of work to try and suspend that. You want to be able to place that in this area of abeyance where you don't filter it. Again, you depersonalize this information. So to actively listen, you want to be other directed. That is, it's not all about me, and I'm not going to sit here and listen to this information or whatever you're going to say and then take it personally and develop my argument in response to it. You want to focus on what that person is trying to say. You want to imagine walking in their shoes, and I know we've all had that experience with conversations where the speaker is sending some information to us about what they're experiencing, and you can say, oh, I've had that experience before. That's the feedback. Another nonverbal behavior, and I use this a lot, especially when I'm at the table, is to lean forward. That is one of the most, next to eye contact, I guess, physical movements that an individual can make. When you lean into this conversation, symbolically you're leaning into and want to be part of it rather than step away one of these. So, and at the time that you're listening, it's not the time for you to agree or disagree. You want to be focused on what they're saying. And when you get really good at this, you start to try and decipher what the meaning is, especially with children. So then when it's your turn, give the speaker a moment to rest. And that moment for you is to reflect on the presentation. Sometimes we do have to get our emotions in check. Sometimes we do have to step back and say, it's not about me, this is not an attack on me, we're discussing an issue or a position. And then to establish your dialogue is to start asking questions. You want to acknowledge and summarize what you thought you heard and get confirmation from the sender. Yes, that's what I was trying to say, or yes, that's what I said, and then yes, that's what I meant. And then you want to present your questions in non-threatening manners. You don't want to interrogate. I think parents have a tendency to interrogate their children rather than having a conversation with what happened and maybe, establishing with the child, this isn't about you're going to be in trouble. We want to know what was going on. When you are making your point or framing your issue, you want to restate the relevant point as it was presented. You want to state your idea and your interpretation or your reflection on it. And then you want to invite a response. And I'm going to ask some, reflecting on your personal case study, I want to ask you a couple of questions on your case study. Now, getting prepared to engage in the conversation, what would you do? Thinking of your personal case study, did you do anything to prepare for that conversation? Or did you find yourself in an argument and the argument got legs and ran away and the two of you were just chasing after it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Did you feel that there were distractions and the environment wasn't conducive to a discussion? For example, and I know this happens in families continually, husband and wife need to discuss an issue like buying a car. The environment is not conducive if you've got kids running around, it's time to have dinner, and it's the end of the day. A lot of therapists say, don't try and make decisions at the end of the day. You're tired. You've been at work. You've been at school. You've got a million things to deal with. That's not conducive to a good, meaningful exchange. What about when you hear a statement made that might trigger your opinion or your value system? What can you do to maintain your mindfulness? And that is learning what the speaker has to say. Do any of you have any kind of techniques? Mike?
I mean, you kind of have to put the solution away for a while until the actual speaker invites you in.
Exactly, yes,
So
exactly.
you have to just keep listening and put that in the back of your mind and wait until the solution is asked for.
Yeah.
You never want to offer a solution unless it's asked for.
Yeah. It's being mindful when you go into the conversation that you're not the dominant, and that's that other directed approach to it. Okay, I've got this figured out. Sociolinguists study this quite often with what I've called gender talk. Male and females have different ways. Males have a tendency to want to take the dominant position and fix it before it goes further. And women are they're the collaborators. They want to know every piece of information they can pop, everything from the emotions to, well, what triggered it, and how are you feeling about this, and what can we do, and, you know, they're very, very, well, collaborative is the word, that they're very mindful of keeping the relationship intact and okay, no hurt feelings.